Explore the vibrant arts and culture landscape of Michigan, a state with a thriving creative ecosystem that has birthed iconic movements like Motown and the Purple Rose Theater. Home to legendary musicians, writers, and artists, Michigan boasts a rich tapestry of cultural heritage known worldwide. Michigan Creates is a podcast series that will connect listeners with gifted artists and cultural institutions that are nurturing Michigan's vibrant creative landscape. Welcome to another episode of Michigan Creates. Today I talked to Chris Simpson. He is a music and music business professional based here in Detroit, Michigan, a recent grad of Wayne State University. He saw the need to connect with emerging artists, musicians, and teach them the business end and networking end of being a musician, which is really needed. And so you'll want to pay attention to this podcast in particular, especially if you're an emerging artist. Here we go as I talk to Chris. Chris, this is going to be a lot of fun to connect with you and talk to you. We have not talked too much offline. We were connected through Wayne State University. Both of us are alums over there. And you have a background in music, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you're doing for the musical ecosystem. But first, thank you for being on the program today.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's talk about your background, your musical background. So you went to Wayne State for music.
Yeah.
Talk about you as a musician first.
Oh, absolutely. So I was known as the person in high school that had the guitar on the back. So actually, long story short, I was really involved in the sports industry, and I had a small injury in high school that made me pivot to have more time to listen to music. So that's how I got into listening to records. There's a transition to learning how to play an instrument. And then at senior year, where they ask you where you want to be, what you want to do for a living, I was like, the natural transition is to get a job in music. And I thought I would be a music teacher, music educator. So, and going forward with that, I went to Wayne State and I auditioned for the School of Music, originally as a music education major, but I was playing in bands. I was having my guitar on my back. I was practicing, and that kind of was like the natural transition to, pursue a career in music and what that was.
What kind of music are you interested in mainly?
Yeah, so I come from like a rock background. So my
Okay.
dad played a bunch of records. He was an 80s guy. So, but he also liked to listen to a lot of 70s and 80s music. So on the car rides from school to rehearsals and lessons and things, that's what I was listening to. And then in my background, in my generation, I was playing like a lot of 90s and early 2000s music, mostly like the pop punk rock and roll style
Okay.
in bands, and then kind of took a natural transition. In the School of Music, there's two degrees that you can kind of take as like a study that you can do. So there's the classical take where you can learn classical music, classical guitar, or jazz guitar. And I
Right.
decided to take the jazz guitar route because naturally for me, it was a way to improvise and then be able to play multiple styles of music.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's actually a good path to go down. I love the fact that you said your dad was an 80s guy, so you immediately made me feel old, since I know I'm quite a bit older than you, but I'm also an 80s guy, not by
Yeah.
age, by generation. So going to Wayne State, getting a music degree, how easy was it to transition into the musical world? You said, hey, look, I'm playing music. I love music. Now I've got a degree. Now I want to teach, or I want to get
Mhm.
a job. How easy was that? Although you are a recent graduate
Mhm.
of Wayne State, so there's probably not a lot of time in between that. But was it easy? Was it hard?
Yeah, it was challenging. because
Yeah.
I had initially wanted to go. I don't play on necessarily a traditional orchestral instrument. Guitar is my principal instrument.
Right.
So in a academic setting, you have your orchestra band, and then you have symphony orchestra, and then you have jazz band, jazz combos, your jazz ensembles. So the transition was actually quite challenging because I was coming from playing a non-orchestral instrument and then was trying to sort of be able to get ahead of my peers that had been studying on their instrument for like 8+ years as an educator. So my natural transition in music school, I thought that it might actually be easier to focus more into the jazz studies. So I transferred from being education to a jazz studies major. And then I quickly was in the ensembles, taking jazz theory classes along with the music courses and getting gigs under my belt, teaching in a like music studio, and then I was kind of able to kind of climb the ropes that way. But what I was
Right.
struggling with the most was the business side of the music industry. So as I was going through the program, I was starting to think more long term. And I was like, what do I want to do after school? So I sat down with an academic advisor and I was like, well, what's like the long term strategy of, graduates of the program? And he's like, a lot of them just go out and gig in the world, and like what that means for them in terms of success. And I was like, well, I got to figure that out. I got to find out what success is for me. And I also have to learn how to market myself as a musician. So that
Right.
was kind of the natural transition and light bulb moment in my head where I was like thinking, okay, I got to understand not only how to do the craft, but also learn how to do the business side of music and understanding contracts, understanding booking, the admin side, branding. So the natural transition for me that made the most sense was to finally land on being a music business major.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. And I think that's kind of where we first connected, and my eyes opened up to finally hearing from another musician say, look, I could play music, but there's quite a bit more that's involved than just playing music. Sometimes playing music is the easy part because it comes naturally, right? I
Yep.
have always found it very interesting, and I'm sure you have as well, Chris, the amount of artists in general that know their craft, but they don't know the business end of it. Unfortunately, they don't teach that to you in college.
Mhm.
They just teach you the education of playing music, and you have to really sort of find that out on your own, or you have to, maybe switch majors a little bit and take some courses there. But I've come in contact with so many musicians that don't even know how to put a contract together,
Mhm.
and I'm sure now with the invention of AI and Chat GPT, that's going to help a little
Mhm.
bit, but they don't also learn what they need to do. So, how did you? This is a good transition into talking about your own business that you have, which is called Catch and Play Songs. And I want to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and then how that led into what you have been working on to try and help the musician ecosystem with learning that business
Mhm.
element. Talk to me about Catch and Play Songs. What is that organization or what is that company?
Yeah. So the inspiration of catch and play songs came from our need to understand the business side, not only for myself, but also to serve the greater community of musicians and artists living in Michigan. So Catch and Play Songs is a Michigan music company that focuses on three different things: artist development, music marketing, and community building. So, really helping artists understand the business side of music,
Right.
having strategy, and then also having resources that are in their local community. Not, I always say that the music business, you hear all the time, the music business is a people's business. It's very much a human thing. As much as we can talk about AI and the influence that it has with the tech and helping us in some ways, the human connection that comes with music is extremely important. So, focusing a company that would put on and does put on public events for artists that cultivate community connection, whether it be songwriting, lessons in production, a media day where artists can get like photos, podcast interviews, speaking to entertainment lawyers, songwriting events. So fostering that community all throughout Mission, I feel like I've had a lot of success with not saying come to my island for my resources, but rather say there's already resources here and there's already musicians, studio producers, people in the industry living here in the state, and like let's use that to our advantage. So I've had a lot of success with doing various across various events across the states, doing various workshops, community events, songwriting events, and it's been really great to be all over the state. And I feel like the state also leads itself to be very entrepreneurial in nature, so it's been a very natural transition for me.
And so with that, you're also a board member of Michigan Music Alliance.
Yeah.
And through that, you developed sort of this idea called Business in the Key of D, which
Mhm.
is an awesome name. And this is a 1 day music business networking event. You just did one of these in October. Talk about the genesis of putting that together and some of the outcomes that you saw with that.
Yeah, so the Michigan Music Alliance is very similar in terms of mission to what my company stands for, with providing professional development for musicians in Michigan and having the motto over collaboration over competition. That it's a lot easier to work alongside a team than to be all alone doing it all by yourself. So Business in the Key almost is like a play off of Stevie Wonder's songs in the key of life, right? So if you have the
Yep.
business in the key of D, we have together various workshops presented and panel discussions, anything from branding to sync licensing, to even building your own music community and what that looks like, building your own studio, because a lot of it is like the how, and also it's
Right.
like from the how, where do I start? And the benefit of that organization is all of the speakers and all of the presenters are living here, working in the States. So it's really a great event. That the goal of the organization is being able to do one in Detroit and one in Grand Rapids every year. So kind of statewide professional development and workshops. So much of the work comes from just being able to see people on the ground and being able to talk to people in a third place. And usually that's not at a show when you're having to yell, and
Right.
it's that quick networking thing, but having intentional conversation and then being able to follow up on that is extremely beneficial and rewarding.
It's amazing how the music industry has changed. You could say that about, I guess, any industry, but the music industry in particular has probably changed vastly in the last 10 years. So
Mhm.
I can, as I'm looking at what you were offering for that day, and you talked about some of it, build your own studio, your brand, which by the way, I think is super important. I don't think musicians understand that that is almost equally as important as knowing the music that you play, but just the
Mhm.
tech end of it and artist management, all of that has changed in the last 10 years. People are recording at home. You can record at home now. It's a lot
Mhm.
easier to do. I think, unfortunately, musicians that record have a bit of a disadvantage nowadays than, let's say, maybe when I did. So when I was recording music, I was actually making an actual product that could then be sold in an actual store. And there
Hmm.
were actual stores that would sell these products. Now there isn't. Everything is online. And so navigating through that and to be able to monetize it is certainly very important. And I would venture to say a lot of emerging musicians probably have a lot of difficulty in understanding that. What was the takeaway, Chris, from doing this first one? How was the turnout? What was the vibe after it was done? I'm sure in talking to the musicians, they gave you a lot of feedback of what they
Hmm.
learned. What were some of the big key takeaways from your first?
Yeah, so the first event in Detroit, for the Michigan Music Alliance, it was a great event that had many different artists come from across the state.
Yep.
Even like cities like Flint, cities like Ann Arbor, neighboring Hamtramck, people come out, to be able to one support another, but also learn from each other. So it was a great event. We had a tabling. Shout out to my friends at Bird Fight Records. We actually had a modern record label at the event too. So they do production based in Macomb, but they were able to kind of come down and show face that so that there's actually, if you wanted to do get it signed, there's actually an opportunity for it. In addition to panels and booking, community building, we also had a panel discussion on the mental health part of the industry too.
Right.
So understanding that musicians also need that support, so we provided some resources. So not only are they being able to like learn like kind of in a classroom setting, but they're also kind of being able to have like a ritual of things that they can take, and understanding, me teaching a branding workshop, it's kind of being able to view as like, uh, you know, musicians, artists, bands are small businesses, right? And
Right.
those businesses are led by a mission and they're led by a story. And whatever that story is that's unique to you, that's for you to tell. So that just makes it interesting that, that just because there's not like necessarily one way for everyone to define success, there's multiple pathways, there's different sources of income that come beyond just like the streaming world like you mentioned.
Well, Chris Simpson, it was a pleasure to talk with you today on this. I really admire the fact that you've taken this on to help other artists. It's like I said early on in this podcast that it's a need out there, and you're helping with that. And folks that want to get a hold of you can go to your website, Catch and Play Songs. It's all spelled out, catchandplaysongs.com. And they can
Mhm.
connect with you that way. And hopefully, you're going to be doing more of business in the key of D. There is no shortage of emerging artists out there. So, Chris, thank you for taking the time today to talk to me.
Thank you, Ara. I appreciate it. Yeah, you could just follow Catch and Play Songs or visit my website for more.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Michigan Creates. We hope you've had fun diving into the creativity of our state. From Motown melodies to artisanal wonders, Michigan never fails to dazzle. But hey, the creativity doesn't stop here. Connect with us online, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes. Help us spread the word and also share your own artistic stories. So until next time, I'm Ara Topouzian, and I want you to keep those musical instruments in tune, keep those paintbrushes moving, and keep those cameras rolling. Remember, in Michigan, the only limit is your imagination. Stay creative.